Hello, selamat petang, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for staying with us. So we're talking about China+1 today. A little bit of background. China+1 really came about after the COVID period, when the whole world realized that China, as the world's factory, the supply chain needed a bit of an update. Japanese companies, as you know, in the 1980s invented just-in-time supply chain. But because of COVID, because of the lockdowns in Chinese factories, a lot of global supply chains were disrupted. So it was the beginning of a conversation about just-in-case supply chain, whereby you put your eggs in different baskets just in case something were to happen to your big factory. And that's the backdrop of our conversation today. So the China+1 model really was an alternative to this supply chain contingency. So over the past few years, of course, ASEAN as the biggest and closest large market to mainland China has come to the fore, and Indonesia in particular has been the most attractive part of this China+1 strategy. So today I would like to maybe start with the rose among the thorns and ask Ibu Shinta what you think, what are some of the particular characteristics of Indonesia that make Indonesia prominent in this China+1 strategy?
Thank you, Eugene. I think clearly when we look at Indonesia, we have to look at first the geographical location. I think the proximity, this will help, the fact that Indonesia's location, position, but also the market size. I mean, if we look at the scale of Indonesia with 200 over million people, definitely this is an advantage of us. And political stability, whatever you say, we are a stable country, you know. And I think this will help in terms of doing business with Indonesia. We are providing that stability as well. And of course, you know our resource strengths. I think this is what we are very proud of. Our resource strength, which is our critical mineral. We have all the nickel, bauxite, copper. And this is, if you see China, this is actually essential for the EV battery ecosystem. And this is why actually China has been investing quite significantly also in this area. And energy transition. You know, Eugene, we have the renewable energy is unbelievable. Geothermal, wind power, solar, you know, hydro, I mean, you name it, you know. So this is something we have very much, very strong in this. And also on the agriculture side, I think we are talking about food processing, oleochemical, biofuel, you know, all this opportunity is there. And when we talk about why Indonesia fits best with China, you can also see that China+1 strategy is, I think we are not trying to replace, but we have the basis for China to expand more. So if we look at the EV battery supply chain, this is where Indonesia's strongest we have the upstream, and we are now trying to also do the downstream industry. And this is where I think there are many potential, because this is what Indonesia also giving a lot of incentive for those companies who wants to invest in the downstreaming side. So fiscal and non-fiscal incentives are really there, and also government is doing a lot of the deregulation, debottlenecking to really help in making this happen. And I think when we talk about resource-based manufacturing, Indonesia is also very much, as you know, stainless steel, petrochemical, but also the labor intensive. I don't want to lose that, because we are very known on our, you know, labor intensive, like garment, textile, shoes, furnitures, you know. So we look at all this, definitely we have to be part of this China+1, and definitely have a position, leverage on making Indonesia to be partner of China as well as Hong Kong for this development.
Thank you, Ibu Shita. You have raised a lot of very interesting points, and we will come back to some of these points later. Mr. Hu, welcome to our conference. Now, you are part of a large company, the Fosun Group, that does business all over the world. Right? You are, of course, responsible for Fosun Health specifically, but from the perspective of a Chinese company that does business all over the world, what are some of the key factors that make Indonesia unique in this China+1 strategy?
Thank you. To express better my point of view, I will speak in Mandarin.
Sure.
Okay. 我认为印尼的整个在供应链在中国加一的这个整个战略上能够有更好的一个参与。我想主要第一个的话是印尼有非常好的这个矿产资源啊，有很丰富的这样一个物质的一个资源啊，这也是这个印尼能够更好的组织好这样一个全球供应链，参与到全球供应链的主要原因之一。第二个的话，就跟我们在印尼现在目前看到的，就是国内有一个很大的市场，印尼有超过2.8亿的人口，而且整个印尼的这个新增的人口数量的话，每年是这个接近300万啊。我们看到在医疗行业啊，我们的相关的这样一个就是中产阶级的需求非常的大啊，一个大的一个国内的一个内需的市场啊，也在驱动啊本土的这个产业的升级，在驱动我们在这个整个一个行业有更多的技术资源，有更多的这个相关的一些这个科技能够在这里能够落地发展。然后第三个的话，我想我们印尼的整个经济发展非常的快速啊，能够有5%以上的一个经济发展一个增长率。所以说这个印尼目前这个整个在全球供应链，尤其是在中国加一战略上，能够有更好的一个展现的话，主要是这个3个因素所以说我们这个复星集团啊，我们的这个生物医药，我们的整个医疗服务以及我们的保险服务，都愿意参与印尼这个市场。好，谢谢。
Thank you. Roy, let's quickly turn to you. You obviously represent OCBC, one of the leading regional banks, and you've been doing business in Indonesia, as I understand it, for almost a decade. So from your perspective as a regional banker, particularly responsible for enterprise banking, in other words, serving businesses, what are some of the key factors that make Indonesia unique in this China+1 strategy?
Yep. Can you hear me? So, actually, OCBC has been in Indonesia for 85 years already. We have been obviously observing a large flows of Chinese companies coming to Indonesia, but the sort of flows that's coming to Indonesia has changed over the years. In the beginning, there were trading companies. I remember sending a staff from China something like close to 10 years ago, and at that point in time, the Chinese community here was really, very small. And he spent most of his weekend playing mahjong with his friends, not wandering out because of the lack of familiarity. But if you fast forward today, 10 years later, what you then see is the Chinese are coming here for different reasons, not just trading. We have been organizing this thing called One Connect events for the last 3 years. And there were 3 key purposes of why Chinese companies were keen to come through the event. First of all, they were looking for partners. They were looking for partners that they could partner with to manufacture. There were also a group of people that were very keen to invest strategically into the Indonesian companies. And obviously the third would be the all-encompassing kind, where they would do a variety of things. They would look for trading companies to partner with. They look for all kinds to partner with. So, I mean, the long and short of it is that I think the flows are really very different now. And with you know, what's happening in the world, right? I mean, the Chinese companies coming to this part of the world, for Indonesia is obviously the large domestic market that companies are going after right now.
Thank you, Roy. Now, I understand that Ibu Shinta has to leave in a few minutes for another engagement, so I'm very keen to tap your brains for as long as you're here. So there's a saying that behind every risk, there's opportunity, right? But the opposite is also true. Behind every opportunity, there's potential downside. So I wanted to ask you, what are the potential downside or risks of putting all eggs in one basket? If we're talking about China+1, is there any risk of over-dependence, say, on Chinese companies coming to Indonesia in terms of technology, capital, and so on and so forth? And how do you deal with that kind of potential downside?
Thank you, Eugene. I think, first of all, we need to understand where Indonesia is. So I think I really believe that the consistent direction to improve our own overall economic competitiveness in the international market will become the compass of Indonesian government and businesses to really balance the opportunities and risks of the Chinese investment against Indonesian economy. I think, as you know, Indonesia has a vision of Indonesia, golden Indonesia, 2045, and we have set ourselves, we want to be an upper economy. And I think by many of performing these structural reforms and, it really will help Indonesia to really also be able to be attractive for all investors, not just Chinese. I think two of the key factors to achieve this vision is really improving our trade, investment, and industrial climate measured by improvement of the global value chain investment to support this vision. So if you look at now, Indonesia is very much still dependent on China, on the raw materials. We're still in general, 70% of our raw materials are still imported, and China is really a big source of our raw materials. So we need to look at that, as how can Indonesia also develop with the help of China in the upstream industry. So we're not talking about just downstreaming, but upstream, so that we are not dependent. So I think this is something that we need to flip. Look at China as a partner in developing what we really need in Indonesia. Not just importing, but developing our own industry in the upstream.
Also, to refer back to what Pandu said earlier on this morning, it's a transfer of knowledge, transfer of talent, transfer of technology.
And I think, we always forget, technology is one thing, finance is another thing. But the people, the talent, this is another thing. When we look at all this technology, we need the skills and the people. And I think China can also help us to play that role. So while we are, at the end of the day, it's more Indonesian homework. And while we want to do diversification, there are priorities that we need right now that definitely China can help.
Okay, so let me move to Mr. Hu. So from the perspective of a large company, again, a company that does business all over the world, what can the Indonesian government do, or your Indonesian counterparts do, in order to maximize the potential of this China+1 opportunity?
我认为这个印尼的整个在供应链领域的这个发展呢，未来有几个建议，一个就是加快绿色和数字结合的这样一个建议，就是我们看到中国的这个整个供应链的数字化绿色化推动了我们整个行业不断的进步，不断的应用新的科技我想这个是在印尼在接下来参与这个全球供应链体系建设中一个非常好的一个方向。第二个的话，我们希望这个进一步的这个夯实东盟一体化以及和中国的这个合作，能够构建中国东盟的这个医药健康的通道，承接技术的溢出并带动本土的创新我们其实看到这个市场有越来越多的像复星这样的中国的生物医药、生物科技企业以及医疗服务企业参与到印尼的市场，我们希望能够加大这个整个在区域的一个合作协同。第三个的话，我们希望我们的这个整个政策能够保持长期性、连续性，保障我们这个投资企业的发展。谢谢。
Ibu Shinta, just for your benefit, Mr. Hu talked about the continuity of policies and stability, which is very important for the ability to make use of this opportunity. Roy, from the perspective of the capital markets, how can a bank help?
For us, we look at it from three pillars perspective. I think you look at the capital markets or you look at the lending markets and all, what we do is we have actually set up Chinese teams in all the countries in this part of the world, Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, Hong Kong. So the connectivity amongst the countries are really good, because when you look at flows, when you talk about Indonesia, or you're not talking about Indonesia as a country, but you're talking about flows coming from China and the other parts of Hong Kong, even Singapore. So the ability to connect quite seamlessly is extremely important. And for the Chinese community, I think the key thing is that you have this ability to communicate, the ability to understand the culture. I think that's very essential. The third pillar, as we term it internally, is what we call beyond banking. Because it's not just about banking, it's not just about capital flows. If you don't get the soft aspect of things right, you will find it very difficult to bring in the investments. So what we do is that when a Chinese company approaches us, we would look at the other soft aspect of helping them land well. What I mean by land well, you can even consider things like looking for the right people to work for you, fine-tuning your management style, because what's applicable in China may not be in Indonesia. Then you also talk about investment policies. You talk about speaking to the right people when you land. And speaking to the right people is subjective. It depends on what you look out for at the end of the day. I mean, there are very established Chinese communities here in Indonesia already, whether at the Peak, Central Park. But you need to speak to the right group of people in the right industry to truly help you in coming to Indonesia as well as you can. So to me, that's not about the capital, but the other aspects as well. So capital, obviously, I shared earlier that we've been here for 85 years, and the virtue of being here for 85 years also means that we know the local community well, and the ability to matchmake is key. And we are spread over 200 branches in Java Islands, Sulawesi, and everything. So the ability to connect is something that we are very confident, and we know that we do well.
Okay, we have a few more minutes. Ibu Shinta, if you have to leave, we understand. Okay, it's okay? All right. So for the last few minutes that we have, I'd just like to ask you to sort of set your mind forward the next 5-10 years. Now, Kadin, of course, represents businesses across all industries. In the next 5 to 10 years, what are going to be your priorities?
And we've been communicating through and through, representing all businesses in Indonesia. I think the first is definitely continued domestic policy reform, Eugene. This is really, really key for Indonesia. I still see investors saying, oh, you are so many, it's so complex to do business in Indonesia, so many licensing, so many regulations. So we need to continue our domestic policy reform. This is the only way investor will really actually do business here. So I think we need the greater of ease of doing business and more of also affordable or regional competitive costs of doing business. So as you know, Indonesia is not just Jakarta, it's not just Java, right? So this has to be cooperated all around the region. And also better access, affordability, innovation in business. We're talking about a lot of export financing. Those are very, very important. And improve alignment with international standard and practices. And the second is really continuing investment in basic building blocks of economic competitiveness. So when we talk about infrastructure, I know Indonesia right now has built, if you look at the progress since the last decade, it has improved significantly, but we still need to do more of our fiscal infrastructure. So this is road, railway, ports. This is all still needed. And digital capability, whatever it is, this is digital world. You know, what we are constantly doing now is how the infrastructure, digital infrastructure, is also being built, as well as, again, human capital quality. This is not just about having the human capital. I mean, we have a lot of people, workers, but is it in the right skill? So we continue upscaling, rescaling. This is very, very important to bring Indonesia in a very competitive position. And, you know, we've been, lately, Indonesia has been negotiating many of these free trade agreements, including also finishing, we already have one with Hong Kong. This is important. We need to show ourselves, hey, we are connected to the world. So I think all this, what we call the comprehensive economic partnership agreement, I think this is all very important. So last one that I wanted to touch is on the sustainability aspect. This is something that I continue promoting. We have to be part of this because this is the trend. This is what's happening in the world. We talk about ESG, we talk about demand of the market that requires this. So definitely sustainable businesses, you know, all this has to be part of the game, and Indonesia has to also lead in this effort.
Thank you, Ibu Shinta. Mr. Hu, as a business that does business all over the world over the next 5-10 years, what do you hope to see in Indonesia to encourage your company, your group to come and invest in Indonesia?
Thank you. I will answer this question in English. I think Indonesia must be the hub for the supply chain in Asian region. And our company, Fosun Group, is a global company with business more than 40 countries. And we provide the insurance business, we provide the medical service, we provide the medicine manufacturer service for all the countries we have business. And I think in Indonesia, our group, Fosun Health, we have more than 18 hospitals in China, and we have also have the experience of the internet medical service in China for more than 5 years. And we have started to have cooperation with our partners in Indonesia 3 years ago, and we want to establish several hospitals here. And we also want to have cooperation with local distributors with our medicines, and we also want to have the cooperation with the biosimilar and CAR-T therapy manufacturers here. I think there will be more and more opportunities between our group and our partners in the Indonesia market. Thank you.
That should be good news for a banker like yourself, Roy.
Definitely.
Looking ahead for the next 5 to 10 years, what do you think will happen? What are your wishes for Indonesia in terms of the China+1?
If you look at the development in the last 5-10 years and where we are today, that's really a big change. I spoke about the Chinese community. I mean, to me, I think the people part is quite important. It's really the essential, the center of everything. So once you get people who understand the culture, meaning to say that the Chinese will understand the Indonesians will understand more about the Chinese, I think that's really crucial. And just to share with everyone, there are at any point in time about 7,000 Indonesians that are studying in China. So if you look at a cohort of say 4 years, that puts it at about 30,000 people, 30,000 Indonesians studying in China at any point in time. So if you look at what this means to Indonesia is that you gradually get more and more Chinese-speaking Indonesians in Indonesia working together with the Chinese or for the Chinese. I think that is a very powerful thing. That will really make a difference in how the two cultures assimilate. In terms of what I wish for the country, I think connectivity is very key. It's not just about connectivity from an infrastructure point of view, but from a digital point of view in terms of how, just talk about trade documents, the flows and everything. In terms of how the country is linked up, I think that really make a world of difference. I'll just cite an example of a customer that we've been dealing with. I mean, the person is in the logistic business, last mile, literally bringing things into the heart of villages and everything. He's so digital, such that the person in the village that procures only need to send an order via WhatsApp, but it actually goes into his back-end system and all. And this particular company has done so well that they can raise money in Singapore and in Hong Kong because while domestic focus, he's also looking out to the region for funding. And the last couple of conversations we spoke to him, we said that, hey, look, you may want a Chinese angle if you want to go listing eventually. And what he did, I mean, the last I know is he is getting more and more fluent in Chinese compared to some of my friends. So that's really the sort of hunger that we are seeing in the younger Indonesians today, and extremely encouraging, plenty of energy in whatever we do, and just a huge wanting to improve in all aspects of things, the welcoming environment in terms of foreign investments and all. So that's really what we are seeing.
Thank you, Roy. We have to wrap it up here because we need to keep the schedule on time. Ibu Shinta had to leave us earlier because of a pressing engagement, but please, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in thanking Roy and Mr. Hu Hang.
Thank you once again, Mr. Hu, Mr. Tan, and of course,